packet, we have the actual court order approving and granting our motion to intervene in this case. As you know, Orange filed an intervening complaint, and they've been granted approval. And since we moved to intervene, some of the other towns in the district have also moved to intervene. I think what are some of the other?
It's Woodbridge, Orange, Milford,
Milford and Stratford have also.
Fairfield.
I'm not sure if Fairfield is, but Milford and Stratford have also. Right. Ultimately, all the towns in our region will probably intervene in the case. And as we said at the beginning of this, that we're going to take the lead of the Attorney General so we can keep our legal fees down. Orange is going to do the same thing, and I assume the towns that come into the case are going to do the same thing. So that's moving along, and nothing substantive has happened except our motions have been approved by the court.
This is an action brought to the declaratory judgment.
Declaratory by Soundview to be relieved of the responsibility of providing $100,000 to our district for community access television.
Okay, any questions? The next item then is Kathleen L. Electronica versus the Town of Woodbridge. Update.
Yeah, this is a tax appeal. The town has 3 active tax appeals pending out of all the residents in our town. This is one of the 3, and the lawyers for the plaintiff in this case were saying their assessed value is too high. Attempting to take the depositions, ask questions of the various members of the Board of Assessment Appeals. We felt that would be appropriate, so we filed this motion.
Is that normal?
No, it's not normal. It's very unusual. It's normal to take the deposition of the tax assessor as well. In this case, they asked to take the deposition of the individual members. We think it's wrong. We think it's contrary to law. That's why we filed the motion. And it's going to be up to a judge to make a decision.
So is it a big difference between what they think and what we've assessed it at?
What they think.
What's an issue or what's not?
The issue sounds like they've assessed their house at more than what we've assessed the house at more than what they think.
Yes, it's several $100,000.
So it's a big difference.
Yeah,
because it seems as though if it wasn't a large amount, they wouldn't be trying to go after 3 of the assessment appeals members, right? I mean, I had a hard time following, but it looks like the gist of it is they're trying to get 3 members of our Board of Assessment Appeals to say something under oath.
Basically explain why they made the decision of denying the appeal of the assessment. And we think it's improper because they really don't make the decision. They listen to the advice and the recommendation of the tax assessor, and really is the appropriate individual to be giving testimony as to how she came up with the assessed value, as opposed to the individual members. We'll see what the judge says. We've cited some law. So far, they haven't filed a opposition, but I think that they will. And then the judge will make that decision.
Okay.
That's that one.
All right. And then this amendment to contract with Billy Castle, we don't have that in the packet. So
yeah, there is an amendment.
It's not in the packet.
It's not in the packet, no. Okay. I'm still discussing this with Casper, and perhaps we can put this over to the next meeting, and then we'll have a final document. There's some language we're going over.
What's being amended?
The thing that's being amended is the terms regarding repayment by the town of doing away with some of Casper's monthly fees. Now, if you remember, the agreement said that Casper would be willing to waive or postpone payment of its monthly fee in the event the cash flow was not sufficient to make those payments. That happened last summer. They postponed receiving their fee, and this amendment just codifies and sets out some monies in behalf of the town to cover those payments. This amendment it describes the time period when you must pay that back, and that is been postponed until June of 2013.
So would the amendment benefit Billy Casper or the town?
And it benefits the town. It's good for us. It defers our responsibility of reimbursing Billy Casper, who advanced some money and also deferred their monthly fees.
And they agreed to this in concept.
They've agreed. They've been great. They've been talking, because just a couple of sentences that we're still discussing in terms of getting some finalized.
Well, how's that for the next meeting?
Yep, we will. As well as a report on, as you asked the last time, we thought we'd do that in December, as to who's using the golf course, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Okay, so, and there's no other? Okay, so now that gets us back to item number 5 on our agenda, Public Works Building Committee, and Chris Sorensen here as the chairman. And so Chris, the first item we have is the 50% design completion update.
Good evening, everyone. We have a meeting tonight with our full committee at 5 o'clock, discussing the pre-qualification process. And we went through the whole process here. I don't know if you have copies of this.
We do.
You do have copies of that. There was just a couple little...
And what Chris is referring to is his pre-qualified contractors. Okay.
And go ahead, Terry.
The committee has voted in the affirmative to refer this to you this evening, and we've tried to share it with as many people as we could. The project would like to advertise for pre-qualified contractors based on the criteria and information that you find on your distributed materials. The committee has added 2 items, and perhaps we can call up the clerk of the committee to report on what those 2 items are. Cindy.
The 2 modifications that we had to the pre-qualification were they made a motion to request that the Board of Selectmen approve with amendments the pre-qualification so that we go out to bid. We have a couple of different amendments. I just worked with the architect. He gave them to me.
Yeah.
Grammatically, they're very small amendments. The other one was, the second motion was to have the Public Works Building Committee, in conjunction with the Town of Woodbridge officials, to form, I guess, a quasi-subcommittee, Chris?
Yes, yes.
To put together qualified individuals to review the pre-qualifications when they come back.
So what our goal is for the pre-qualified contractors is that we think that there are some contractors who will do a wonderful job on this project and some that would do not such a wonderful job. And we'd like to have the ones that do a wonderful job. We think that the people that do a good job will have certain traits. For example, in here we ask for there to be evaluated on their workers' compensation rate, which is an indicator of how safe a job that they do. We're interested in the amount of the percentage of change orders in their jobs in the last 10 years because we know that that's a thing that just plagues projects is change orders. We don't have an opinion on how many contractors might be pre-qualified. Various parts of the team that are present in front of you think different things. I think there could be as many as 20 that could become pre-qualified. We don't have a maximum number. We have any number. There are some that believe that we will end up having 5 or 6 actually pre-qualified under this criteria. We have a written criteria. We believe it's a very tight document. We don't think it's too tight, and we are concerned about having the criteria too tight so that we don't get any responses at all. And I'd be happy to discuss those sorts of things. For example, the Q Bridge, when first bid, had no bidders because they made qualifications to do a Q Bridge things that everybody said no thank you, and they had to break it apart into pieces.
Well, another concern was anything they were going to get paid. The state wasn't going to come up with money, so that was a bigger thing. Anyways, okay, go ahead.
So we think that we've applied enough criteria to fairly evaluate the credentials of people that should be able to build our public works things. I think that we've got it loose enough so that the marketplace can work, because we want competitive forces to work. To give you an idea of timing, this document would have their responses for pre-qualifications back to us on December 3rd. We would then evaluate that. We would hope that the construction documents would be then ready to go out to public bid in the second week in December, with bids due back in the second week of January. And we're leaving a little time from January into March 1st and hoping that we would start construction in March 1st. So it's a very tight schedule, but we think that it's a perfect time to be out on the street with a commercial project like this. We think that this is a time to get our best bids. We think there are contractors out there looking for spring work and prepared to sharpen their pencils. So we have with us members of the committee that have been suffering long and hard under this project. We also have a series of design professionals. We have some plans that we could share with you if you'd like. We also have in our presence an estimator that the committee has engaged to give us an estimate of the cost of the project thus far, and we believe that this cost estimate is a way to instruct the design, because we want to be prepared as we go forward.
Okay, so the first item we have at the moment is this document, pre-qualified contractors, as may be amended. Is there an amendment to that?
There is, and that the amendment is that the contractor would bear the cost burden of their own application, so they won't try to get from us the cost burden of responding to this. We also ask that the contractor have an office in the state of Connecticut, and that the committee feels strongly that a committee and town group should evaluate fairly the successful pre-qualified contractors.
Is that to be included, the last thing in the pre-qualified contractors, or is that separate?
That's to be included.
That'll be at the end of page 5 there. There'll be a couple more paragraphs just to add on to those.
Okay. So, Jerry, have you had a chance to look at it?
I looked at it and I thought the agreement was fine. Tom had some comments.
Yeah, were you copied on the email?
I was copied this morning.
I sent it to Terry.
Okay, so I guess I understand what you're trying to do, but I was just curious as I'm going through it, that it seemed a little vague in certain areas, and I guess on the second page where we're talking about pre-qualification documents that consist of under 3, evidence of capacity to provide adequate performance bond, labor and material bond, and insurance in a form acceptable to the owner. And if I'm looking at this, I guess what's adequate how's that, how do you define adequate? And anybody could apply and think that they have adequate, they have an adequate performance bond, or that they have insurance that would be acceptable. But I always thought that we would go out with what we expected, and they would have what we expected as opposed to what's adequate. I would think that, was it in here that had, maybe it was somewhere else where they're talking about limits of liability and all that.
Traditionally, you bond for the cost of the project in the construction industry.
So then everyone would meet that criteria.
We say on the first page that we anticipate the cost under $5 million. We are optimistic, by the way, but you know, the bond would be the cost.
$5 million
would be the cost of the project.
And then prospective bidder shall provide record of judgment or claims, arbitration proceedings, or outstanding, pending or outstanding, acceptable to the owner. So I guess again, what's acceptable? What do we consider acceptable? No pending claims against them, or 3, or 1 really big one and 4 little ones? I mean, I'm not really sure.
I think in terms of those comments, Tom, with the good comments, I think that those are really basically terms of art that are used generally in these kind of documents by the town. And it is better, in my opinion, it is better for us to have the flexibility to make those determinations as we see the prospective bidders come in. Your argument would be a good one if we were representing the contractors who would.
Well, yeah, it's not really an argument.
This gives us much more flexibility, and I think it's much more favorable for the town to have those kind of words in our.
But it creates more work for you if you're using words like adequate and so I guess evidence of adequate financial resources. I mean, there's got to be a ratio or an industry average that you know, expenses to revenue that you would use to look at that. And that's my only concern. I mean, I think this is a good idea. I think you want to get good qualified applicants, and you want to try and weed out the ones that you don't think will be qualified. But I don't see anything in here that's asking for actual qualifications other than what's adequate or what the town feels they're comfortable with. And I'm just looking to make your job a little easier, because the way I read this, anybody could qualify, and they're not going to know until we look at it and say this isn't adequate to the owner. So sorry, you're not.
On page 3, if you could look at the page, towards the top of page 3, we under item 7, we asked for a statement of prospective bidders, and we asked first for their pre-qualification status with the Department of Administrative Services. We are obligated by state law as a town, if the project is more than $500,000, and if we are a political subdivision of the state, you know, we are both of those,
Right.
They have to be pre-qualified with the state.
Right, those are all good.
Right. We think
Just
that
like in the other areas where I would, but again, it's not that I agree this is a good way to go. It just, I thought it'd be easier for you and the group that's going to ultimately look at this if there were a few minimum requirements that were in this to pre-qualify people.
We believe that there's a lot of minimums, and that the use of qualifying language like we use is to the town's best interest in terms of the town being able to be flexible to respond to our requests. I believe we will know.
Okay, and then just one other thing, based on what we've been going through with the fire department, would be, I'd like to know average time to close out change orders. We still have change orders, don't we, over there? Or are they all done? But that's one thing I'd like to know, is how long do you close these things out? Does it take a year after you open to close out your change orders, or? I know that you want to know how many you get, because that gives you an indication of whether they did it right the first time or not. How closely they monitor the project and stuff that's to be done, but I'd be interested to know if they even track that, how long it takes to close out a change order.
I'm sure that the committee would be happy to incorporate that information in this document in an average. We want to know from the pre-qualifier how many, what's their average time to close out the change orders from their
Well, I think
projects.
this is good, and I hope it makes your job a lot easier.
Well, I think it will. I really do.
That's all I have to say. Just suggestions.
Yeah.
Any other comments? If not, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the Town of Woodbridge Department of Public Works pre-qualified contractors that's in your packet, subject to the following amendments: that the cost for this process be borne by the applicant, that the applicant have an office in the state of Connecticut, that the applications that are submitted will be reviewed by a committee of the town, the bids that are submitted, and also to include the annual, the time needed to close out change orders.
I'll make that motion.
All right, second it.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. So that takes care of the first part of your report, the 50% design completion. Is there an overview you want to give of that? Or
We have the architect present, we have plans to show you and an estimate if you have the time and interest to see that.
what is the feeling? Want to see it? Yeah,
Sure.
okay, definitely.
This is a heavy enough.
Not having you?
How many trees? Pulling trees here.
We have a lot of trees now.
Yeah, that's true.
Not enough. Couple something, right? Sugar and everything.
Wow.
Well, sure.
I'd like to also have, Terry's also going to pass out a copy of the budget based upon the plans.
Yes.
That were done a little bit before you see the estimate of the budget where we are. Mr. Lou Finkel is here with us, who is the cost estimator that we have obtained to do the cost estimate of where we are. And we have another quote from another contractor to balance things out, to make sure where we are. We are about 90% done with the, between 90 and 95% done with the drawings. We will meet our deadline in December to have everything ready to go out to bid with no delays. We have basically the cost estimate that you will see there, estimate of probable construction cost that Mr. Finkel put together, is about $500,000 higher than the proposed budget. It's not great performance, but it's not $5 million over the proposed budget. It's $500,000, which is very much within our reach. As a matter of fact, we can identify a number of items in the construction cost budget that we can remove as a result of different methods and techniques of construction. And we are prepared to make those changes in the drawings to accomplish that reduction in the price. We feel exceedingly comfortable because the estimate from the construction cost from the contractor was only 5% off of our budget. So we feel very comfortable with where we are in the production of the drawings and where we are in the cost, that we're going to be able to deliver this project on time and on budget. You also have to remember that these costs are estimates. They are not bid situation costs, and when the contractor gets a hold of it and wants a job, we think we're going to be able to be really better off than we are. Just so that you know some of the items that we're looking into at this point in time, we're looking at LED lighting, which is a cost-saving issue for the town and the operation, and the amount of money that will save the town in terms of running those lights whenever they have to go on. We're looking at a two-phase lighting system. Phase one is when nothing's going on in the yard, it will be X light. In phase two, when there's an emergency and things have to happen, the power can come on and the light in the yard can be very well lit. We have built into the budget the extra money for the heating and the floor of the building, and we have a deduct alternate for, if we can't afford it, if the budget comes in too high, we choose to get rid of it, to add or change it for regular unit heaters in the building. We have the most efficient air conditioning and heating system that we could get for the building. Those portions of the building that need to be heated higher will be
done so. We have timers, setbacks, the whole thing, so that the garage can run at a very efficient level. Our sprinkler system in the garage is a dry system, so that we don't have to worry about the pipes freezing or breaking. We're going to maintain a temperature of 40 degrees in the storage area, 65 degrees in the repair area, and we think that we can handle that with the most efficient systems that we have designed. We effectively feel exceedingly comfortable with where we are in the entire project, and we feel that we've looked at a whole bunch of issues from the town's perspective, not just for the initial cost, but the long-term operating costs, how to make that most effective for the community. And that's sort of where we are.
Any
I have a quick
Yep.
question. Did you include in this, because I didn't have time to go through it, obviously, any estimate on solar heating?
We looked into solar heating.
We talked about that at one of
Yes,
the
yes, we did.
suggestions
We looked
from
into it. Unfortunately,
residents.
we're not oriented the correct way to get benefit of solar heat.
Okay.
You mean the building is?
The building
Yeah.
isn't, right. The-
You're oriented.
You are.
Thank you, sir. The building is not oriented in a way
Okay.
that we can maximize a solar heat. If we were turned 90 degrees, it would be a different story. We looked at that. It doesn't fit on the site, and it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay.
We are in communication to answer your direct question about the North Haven Public Works facility, by the way.
Right, okay.
And what they've done is, we've contacted the Public Works Director in North Haven, and she reports that their solar cell assembly is at their transfer station and is so situated so that it can take some advantages. Our only structure that we're building is what we call the truck port, which is just a roof. And that has some geographical advantages to solar, but we don't need any electricity, to speak of it, certainly not when the sun is shining. So I don't think it will reap the benefits in this particular project that it might.
Well, I just asked that you guys look at
Yeah,
it,
we
and
did
you
look
did,
at it,
and I
we did
appreciate
look at
that.
it.
Thanks
Yes,
for
we did.
remembering.
Susan?
Thank you.
So not necessarily as a follow-up to that, I just don't remember, has there been any discussion about possibly installing a generator for this facility?
Yes, we have a generator for that facility.
The project has always thought, the Public Works needs 100% backup generator. By the
Well,
way.
that's right.
It's the group.
As do I, but I understand that I get it. So
and each of us are on our own on that basis, but and many of us have chosen to put in those generators. I want you to know, we seem to have, 3 of them.
It would be better if we had natural gas, though, wouldn't it? But go ahead, that's another topic.
We are going to have natural gas.
I know you are.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking to you?
Oh, okay.
Certain parts of Rivers Road, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The project has always planned to relocate the existing diesel generator from the existing firehouse, the old firehouse, to the Public Works facility. It's a perfectly sized generator, and it's very new as far as generators go. At the same time, we've asked that to understand what a new natural gas generator will cost. Presently, Public Works is 100% backed up from the town's generator, and they are working on an extension cord from Town Hall presently. Once we remove that, they have to have a generator. We rely on these people,
Right, and that's why I'm asking.
Right, and so there's no option. We must be 100% backed up. Whether it's an existing fuel oil generator or a new natural gas generator, it will be an option with our pricing.
Thank you, I just didn't remember from the prior conversation, so thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, well, thank you very much for the progress you're making.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Ordinance Committee report. The Ordinance Committee met this afternoon, and we have scheduled, requesting that the Board of Selectmen schedule a public hearing on an amendment to the Fire Commission ordinance requiring that the Fire Commission conduct an annual review of the Fire Marshal in writing and supply a copy of that annual review to the Board of Selectmen on or before July 1st of each year. So what we're asking for you right now is to schedule a public hearing on that for our next meeting, which will be on December 14th, or whatever the second Wednesday is in December. 12th, okay? So I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
And just before you vote on it, I wanted to make one little minor correction to the proposed new language. We have annually conduct a written review of performance. I'm suggesting we change, or I change that word review to evaluation. Conduct a written evaluation of the performance rather than review. I think that's a better word.
Okay. Is that something we had, was that in our packet? Or this is no ordinance?
No, it's in the ordinance committee.
Okay, I just didn't know if we had an attachment or anything.
No, it's not. So what we will do is just go to a public hearing on that. You'll get a copy of that. We'll get the input from the public and input part, obviously, from the Board of Selectmen. Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So we'll schedule a public hearing for December 12th. All right, then we come to appointments, the first of which is alternate to the QVHD Board of Directors. Have any appointments? No? Okay, the next is to the Fire Commission for a term ending June 30, 2013.
Okay, and we're recommending Michael Soufrine, lives on Soundview Drive in Woodbridge, president of Hamden Sheet Metal and Highwood Motors, Hamden, Connecticut. He served on the Zoning Board of Appeals as a regular member and alternate. He's a former member of the Board of Assessment Appeals, Woodbridge, and in the Zoning Board of Appeals in Hamden, and a member of the Woodbridge Republican Town Committee. He's been living in town continuously. His family's been in town since 1920, and he's been in town since 1976 when they first moved to the Ziders Dairy Farm, and he built the residence that he's currently in 1995, and he raised 3 children here, all of whom were educated in Woodbridge, and his son gave his life for the country in Iraq, Afghanistan, and he was a former junior in the fire department. His son, Eric.
Okay.
And that's our recommendation.
So that's a nomination?
That's a nomination.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other nominations? If not, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. And then, the next is a representative to the Water Pollution Control Authority. And in your packet, our present representative is Attorney Jeffrey D. Ginsburg. This is an appointment by the first selectman subject to the approval of the Board of Selectmen for a 3-year term. Jeff has been serving on this for the past 3 years. He's goes to all the meetings, is very involved in the operations of the board. And so I'm nominating him for another 3-year term. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. That gets us now down to the minutes, and we have the minutes of our regular meeting of October 24th, 2012. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is the town clerk's report. I have that in your packet. And entertain a motion to approve the town clerk's report.
So moved.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is the first selectman's report. And since we last met on October 20th, I attended the 100th anniversary of the Jewish Community Center. And it was a very enjoyable evening. Congresswoman DeLauro, Mayor DeStefano over there, as well as myself. And so we thank the JCC for their contributions to Woodbridge since they moved here 20 or more years ago. On November 11th, I attended and spoke at the Veterans Day ceremony, which was put on by Joe Hellauer. We had a very good turnout, and as Guy Stella mentioned, there was also a Veterans Day ceremony at the Beecher Road School on Monday. Just by way of information, there is an advertisement for resumes for the appointment of a fire marshal for the town of Woodbridge. It's been advertised in the paper, and the resumes are due by December 7. The committee has been appointed consisting of Messrs. Burt and Mandel and Alexiadis of the Fire Commission, and Messrs. Genovese and Hellauer to serve on that committee to interview and make a recommendation to the Fire Commission for an appointment. And also add that our former fire marshal has reimbursed the town $17,000 as of date, and there's remaining $9,000 which he will pay over the next 2 years. Some of you may have noticed that on 118 Ansonia Road, that house there that had been boarded up has been demolished. And finally, we're told that Governor Malloy will be visiting Woodbridge on Monday at 2 p.m. in relation to the fact that we will have natural gas extended to the center of town, and also in relation to a proposal for a microgrid for both Woodbridge and Stratford to supply energy to the town center on an uninterrupted basis. This is a preliminary project. It's in the discussion stage. There's a question about who's going to pay for that in the final stage, but this is ongoing. But Governor Malloy will be here, we're told, to talk about that. So you're all invited to see him at 2 o'clock if you so desire on Monday.
Where will that be here?
Here at the town hall. Yeah. So with that, we go to our liaison reports. And Lawrence?
I guess the longest discussion at the Woodbridge Board of Education meeting at its last meeting was in preparation for its capital budget request and presentation coming up. And then the biggest piece of that, of course, is the building project. The Woodbridge Board of Education had a special meeting to follow up that discussion. I wasn't able to attend that special meeting. And I guess they are still working to come up with a figure that they can all embrace in terms of their capital budget request. Greg, if you want to update that, I know you're on that committee.
Yeah, the Beecher Building Committee should be meeting within 2 weeks or so with what should be final numbers, recommendations, and a presentation to all the boards of that project. So.
Tentatively, we're looking at that meeting for the 30th, Friday the 30th of November.
Okay. Beyond that, the board also heard a lengthy presentation about the test results, the standardized test results, and how each student enrolled at Beecher Road School can be the educational opportunity for each student can be maximized through this testing process. They call it data drilling, and it makes my mouth hurt because I think of dental work. But anyway, they are now able to use these test results to help each student in each class, and they separate it by class. They separate it by a host of other identifying information to make sure that each student is progressing at capacity, I guess is the best way to put that. At the Recreation Commission meeting the last time, there was a retrospective on the Woodbridge Road Race, which was successful, which raise money for the town's emergency food and fuel fund, a collaborative effort. The fire department helps. The Recreation Commission and Recreation Department put on the race, and then the Human Services Department and some of its commissioners helped too. But the other thing that, again, dominated a good part of the discussion, there is concern at the Recreation Commission, or among commissioners, about the condition of the fields at the Acorn Hill Extension fields, and it has to do with weed growth on the warning tracks. And there is some suggestion that it's a result of the town's new maintenance approach, and so everyone's going to be watching that.
Is this the organic pesticide issue?
Yes. And so
I think that was the main argument they made against it at the time, wasn't it? That the weed growth.
it was one of the arguments, right?
Is Adam Parsons aware of this?
He
Is
wasn't
he the guy that sort of...
Yes, he's the guy.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure he's.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm sure John Atmovich is.
They talk regularly.
Okay.
Do you have any idea, as an aside, I guess, from that, as to how much additional? So I know that part of the organic pesticide issue was that you have to apply twice as much to get the same results as you would with, I guess, non-organic pesticides, and I guess that was put into effect. Do we have any idea how much we spent last year on that, and how often the fields were treated?
We can have Adam report at our next meeting on that if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is still, no, that's fine, and this is still the first year of the program, so we're all watching it and we're all interested to see.
But it's a red flag that...
one of the issues was encroachment by weeds. The expense of it was another issue, and the labor costs. So anyway, so we're all watching, but just FYI, it came up at the last month's meeting. So. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Lawrence. Susan?
The Library Commission met last night. Oops, wait a minute, my notes just disappeared. So throughout December, actually, the Friends of the Library is going to be having a hardcover book sale. Each book is $1. So it's good gift shopping opportunities. That's at the Friends. Todd made the point that some of the state grant money that the library receives on a regular basis is being used to replace aging computers, which get an enormous amount of use at the library, as you can imagine. I mean, it's, as long as it's open, people are there using the computers, and the computers are aging quickly, and I don't know if all at once, but a lot. They talked a lot about the carpet. Tony's already covered that. They talked a lot about Sandy, had already covered that, and Vinny already covered that. They've hired a new library page and plan on hiring an intern for credit actually next semester from Southern. Todd has been asked by Lion, which is the consortia that we're a part of, to represent Lion at the Innovator Users Group the IUG conference, which is in San Francisco. They actually pay for it. And it reflects nicely on Woodbridge and on our library program that he's going to be a part of that, so that's great. The Christian Community Action group has asked for a seasonal bin to be placed in the library lobby. No one was really sure if it was for the collection of food or clothing or gifts or what, but the commission approved that. I guess they've done it with them in the past, so they have a good record with that. I guess the biggest issue that was talked about, and I think it's something that's going to probably involve Tony at some point, is evidently the humidity issue in the building is reaching humidity.
Oh.
And in the same way humidity in your house can be destructive, it's hugely destructive to books, and it can really destroy the entire collection.
It's actually in your capital budget.
Right.
See something on that,
right. So that's clearly going to be coming up with the library.
Why is the current system not working?
I don't know that it's so much a question of the current system. I mean, I think there's just been an ongoing infrastructure problem ever since the library was built, and it may be that dehumidification things were value engineered out. I should remember that, but I don't, whether that was the case. But
Susan was the chairman of the building committee.
right, I mean, but in any event, it seems to be an issue that, although it's always been present, its impact on the collection is now becoming of real concern, which is why in the next number of months, it's going to have to be addressed in some fashion for a long-term plan.
It's something between what we have now and the Beinecke Rare Book Library.
Something between a multi-million-dollar thing and us just going in there and flapping our arms. Yeah, and I don't know what the answer is.
Town Counsel, the family librarian.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, so you know. It's interesting because with so much digital media, you know, it's not like you still have to protect the paper media, even though so much library media is now multimedia and
I
digital.
still read books.
Right, and we all still read books, exactly.
I haven't gone the iPad way yet.
Kindles or something.
Kindles are good though in these storms. You can read them in the dark.
No, a book and a candle was good too.
Yeah, but don't forget the Kindle and the bedbug issue. Right? That was the last meeting where people take these things to bed and the bed bugs find their way into the cases, and the cases get returned to the library, and suddenly there are bed bugs in libraries. Not in our library, but it's been reported elsewhere in the state.
Yeah.
Don't put the DVD cassette tape in bed with you when you're watching on TV.
Good to know.
I'm done.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank God.
Yeah, okay. I attended the Fire Commission meeting on Monday, October 15th, and unfortunately didn't have a quorum. So they adjourned to October 16th, which I could not attend, so I was able to get the minutes. So I can't answer questions, but I'm just summarizing the minutes. Assistant Chief Perrietti reported there was a recent call where the fire department was dispatched for a fluid spill, but actually extrication was needed. And there's been an increase in carbon monoxide calls due to the start of the heating season. They are going to work with the police department, I believe, to work on dispatch issues. I don't know if they've done that, because I haven't been to the next, I don't know. Anyway, next Fire Commission meeting is Monday, so we'll see. The minutes also stated that the fire reports that the Fire Marshal's Office does are still being done on time, up to the state. Chief Rowland reported that the fire department vehicles will start to go for yearly inspections and oil and fluid changes. Repair and maintenance line item is already over the budget due to contracts, and they're going to try to find the money within their budget. Gear will be ordered next week, replacing gear that is over 10 years old and frayed. I guess we have a capital budget now, so they distributed the proposed capital budget for FY14 and approved it. They did add something called a skid steer of the amount not to exceed $25,000. I don't know what a skid steer is, but that's a new item for, I defer to, you know, okay. Sorry. I'll find out on Monday. The commission discussed the fire marshal coverage and replacement, and they agreed to send a letter to Bethany for Selectman Gorski requesting assistance on a mutual aid interim basis for immediate needs. You've already reported on the committee that's going to be interviewing potential fire marshal candidates. And Chief Rowland reported that the fire department participated in several community events: Amby Basketball Car Wash, Town Civil War Ceremony, JCC Road Race, Woodbridge Rec Road Race, and the light trailer was set up for the registrars of voters for the referendum. I think it was actually the primary, because this is way back when. This is Monday, October 15th. So, and they are, I guess they did also use it for Election Day. Okay. Training participation by FD members is at an all-time high. And just to let you know, the Fire Prevention Day that they did in memory of Eva Block is going to be scheduled next year for March 30th, and the fire department is hoping to arrange for a Bullocks fire training trailer. I guess that's a smoke trailer. You go in and...
Smoke trailer.
Yeah, it's creepy, but it's a good thing.
Smoke trailer?
Mm-hmm. Bullocks.
Yeah, it's a smoke
Okay.
trailer.
Past Chief Mark Santoro has been appointed as the Fire Department Liaison to the EMS Commission. And as of this meeting, work on the apparatus bay floor was continuing. You might have noticed that there were fire trucks out for 2 weeks, and I believe that the apparatus bay floor has been completed. I don't know, we have a meeting tomorrow night, so that's a good thing. Discussion took place on the patio, and the minutes state that an application will be filed to inland wetlands. This was, again, October. The next regular meeting, as I said, is this coming Monday, November 19th. And on a personal note, I just wanted to thank the fire department. I have a friend who had a medical condition and she needed a generator, and they went out at 9 o'clock in the middle of the storm to give her a generator so that her medications could be refrigerated, and that was really a big thanks from me. Let's see, the Fire Commission held a very brief special meeting on Thursday, October 25th regarding the appointment of an interim fire marshal and deputies. It was approved that for 90 days, Paul Wedowitz of Seymour will be interim fire marshal and Rod White will be the interim deputy fire marshal at the rate of $25 an hour, subject to approval of the state fire marshal in accordance with the statutes. Due to the impact of Storm Sandy, the Firehouse Restoration Committee was supposed to meet on Monday, October 29th. That was canceled, and we are meeting tomorrow evening at 6:30, and I will get you more on that. That's going over the what we're going to do with Phase 2 in the old firehouse, and I'll probably get an update on the apparatus floor. We kind of do it all at those meetings. And unfortunately, on Monday, November 5th, I couldn't attend the Human Services Commission meeting, so I'm sorry I don't have a report. The minutes aren't available yet. And the annual holiday senior fair, which was scheduled for November 3rd, was canceled due to Hurricane Sandy. They were just using the gym for cots, and it was crazy, and it was just, the kids couldn't do it. No, not that I know of. I asked, and it has not been rescheduled yet. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Greg?
Sure. TPZ, November 5th, approved this new sign for ServPro. TPZ is going to meet this coming Monday. They're continuing to work on and making progress on updating the town plan, conservation and development. So there's been regular work sessions on that. Conservation Commission has also been having regular work sessions on that. They met on the 18th. Conservation Commission also on the 18th it continues to work on seeing if there's any way to create some sort of partnership with organizations that might be able to come together to help purchase the property of Baldwin Farm to preserve it. So it's just beginning stages in the works. Conservation Commission also hosted a talk. There was a speaker. I went to it. So this was November 8th. Dr. Jerry Silbert, and he talked about pesticides in wells. So that was sort of interesting. We had that study done in, I don't know, 93, and it turns out it's very unique. There wasn't many private studies like that, where about 11-12% of the wells turned up pesticides, several. So he spoke about that. And I believe tonight, Inland Wetlands is hearing a couple of things, application for a shed on Whipplewog, Brookside Farm Market repair, but also the Woodbridge Fire Commission, the after the fact application for the patio. It's tonight at 7:30, room 16. I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
Oh, one more thing. I attended the Halloween hoot thing. No, that I didn't attend that. I heard it was great. An allegation. But the fire department actually deserves a lot of credit because I have 4 kids, the oldest of which is 8. So there was no Halloween, and they sort of made one. So they did this truck or stands lined where kids could go get some candy and trucks decorated, and it turned out to be a really great event for the kids because they couldn't go trick-or-treating anyway, and it was a really nice thing.
Okay, thank you.
Amity Board of Ed met Monday night, and they had recognition of the CAPS Award recipients, and I think I got them all. It was Max Ritchie, Kate Simon, Cindy DeStefano, David Saparo, I think was the last name, and Julia Bate, and Zach McKinney were all recognized. And they also had the recognition of American Legion Boys State Leadership participants. And last year, somebody from the representative from the American Legion attended the Board of Ed meeting looking for applicants for this state leadership program that they have. And they met at Western Connecticut State University, and they had American Legions from around the state got together, and it was sort of like a leadership conference. And last year they had one application. So they took the person, obviously they were looking for one person. Again, this year, they, I guess after that, the commander of the American Legion, this area's American Legion, came to a Board of Ed meeting. I happened to be at that board meeting a year ago when he came, and he was very passionate, and he was very upset that Amity could only come up with one applicant. And he thought it was outrageous that they weren't promoting this more in the school. So this year, they went out again. They were looking for one position, one person, and they got 6 applications. And he said 6 great applications. And he actually had to put together a committee, obviously, because it's not hard to pick out of one. So they got the 6 applications and went through them, and they couldn't make a determination. So they were stuck with what to do because they only had one. They only had funds allocated for one position. Well, apparently 5 other people or organizations stepped up and funded the other 5 positions, and they took all of the kids, and I didn't get all their names. I know Max Ritchie was one of them, but the rest of them I didn't get their names. I apologize. But they participated this year, and then out of the 6 that were there, I think one went on to a regional management conference to represent the Amity school system. So that was very good to get that many those applications this year. They also had a demonstration of the NAO robot, which is pronounced now. And it's a small robot. It's maybe a foot tall, and it's like the commercial. You see the Toyota commercial with the robot. It's about that size, and it's computer. They operate with a computer, and they've got one for each of the junior high schools. And they've got about a dozen kids who are working with these robots. And it's amazing. What they're trying to do is they program it and they operate it through the computer. They did a demonstration of it. I have a video if anyone wants to look at it after on my iPod. But it was fascinating. The robot talks, and it can move, and it sits down, it stands up, it walks. And what the kids are going to do is, each one of the kids who was there was speaking about the different things that they were planning on doing with the robot as far as educational uses. And one of the students was going to have the robot read to a group of students, younger students, maybe kindergarten or first grade, and then have a teacher read to another group, and then look at the two and see how the two groups react, one to the robot, one to the teacher, as to, I guess, if the kids get more out of one than the other, or what the reactions are. And different things like that to see how different groups of people react to a human interaction or the robot interaction. And it was fascinating. That I think it's great. It's a great tribute to the school system that we have 2 robots in both of the junior high schools, And we have these young students participating and working at this high level in junior high school. It's just amazing. The student report this week is, I guess next week is Spirit Week. Each day they'll have a different color for the students to wear, and that's something they do every year. The junior class this year is considering having their prom at Grassy Hill Country Club. Typically the junior prom is held at the school, and they've received comments from the students and from the parents, and the parents seem to be okay with having the prom at the Grassy Hill Country Club, so they're considering doing that. Let's see, and then the biggest discussion of the night was the prevention, a presentation on the programs and services to prevent or respond to the use of illicit substances or drugs and alcohol. And this, I think the presentation was in response to something that happened, I believe it was a week ago. A student had been found unconscious in the cafeteria after eating a peanut butter cracker laced with marijuana, which they'd purchased from another student. And apparently the student who was passed out from consuming the cracker had a few of them on his person when they found him. So he was taken to Yale. I guess he or she, it wasn't, because they're 17, so we don't know. But the student was taken to the hospital and was held there for a while and been released, and the two students have been arrested, and they have a court date coming up soon, within the next couple of days to a week, court date on that. So this has been an ongoing discussion at the high school on drugs, and remember they were talking about having the dogs come in and sniffing around the lockers, and also the big controversial issue was whether the dogs would be allowed to approach the students. And apparently the students and the parents, I guess it was a survey of the parents and the students, and they were okay with it. But it was decided against having the canine units come into the school and approach the students at the last meeting. That may get reviewed again, I'm not sure, but they spoke for at least 40 minutes on their entire program and what they do, and the principal got up and obviously said, is there a drug problem at Amity High School? And the answer was yes, there's a drug problem at Amity High School, but there's also a drug problem at every school, public and private. And the administration and the teachers and the faculty believe that it's a small percentage of the students that have issues with drugs and alcohol, and they feel that they're doing everything they can to address the issue. Last year they had 24 cases, 3 were alcohol related, 8 involved drug paraphernalia on the student or in a backpack or a locker. Apparently 13 were drugs and 3 were non-marijuana drugs, whether it's cocaine or whatever other non-marijuana drug. Could have been prescription drugs, it could have been any number of things, but 3 were non-marijuana drugs. This year, to date, there have been 6 incidences, all separate. 5 were drug, 1 was alcohol. 2 were expelled, 5 arrested. And I'm assuming, well, I don't know. I guess the arrests were announced today on the news. It was all over the news today about the 2 arrests. I don't know if the 5 arrested include these 2. We'll probably know that at the next meeting. But they're saying that the average age nationally where kids are introduced to or try alcohol, the national average is 12 years old. As far as deterrence at the high school, they have cameras, they have breathalyzers, they have a school resource officer, they have 2.5 security officers, which I'm sure it's 2 full-time, 1 part-time. And they have canine officers, and they work with...
Not a robot.
You're sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, a robot. And they work with the Woodbridge Police, Orange Police, and the State Police. As far as helping the students cope and working with the students to try and address these issues. They have 8 school counselors, they have 1 full-time substance abuse counselor, and 3 psychologists in the high school to work with the students. They get tips from teachers, they get tips from parents and students about kids that are using or kids that are dealing, and they follow up on suspicious activities. If they notice suspicious activities by students or following up on tips, they'll bring the student into the front office. Apparently when they bring a student out for that particular reason, they take the student out with their backpack and all their stuff so that they are going to be transported out of the school. They're not going back to the room. They're not telling anybody what's happening. They're just being pulled out of the room with everything, and then they're searched if that's necessary. The search is conducted with an administrator present. The search is reasonable, as it's their word. And as they're searching the student, they're telling the student that they're respecting their rights, but they're also respecting the rights of all the other students in the school. They'll search pockets, shoes, backpacks, phone if it's permitted. Apparently they don't have to give up the phone unless they're asked, and if the kid says sure, they can check the phone to see if there are texts or phone messages or such regarding drugs. And they address the drug and alcohol problem through the curriculum. The students are required to take health and wellness in their freshman year. And then sophomores, juniors, and seniors have electives that deal with drug and alcohol, deal with alcoholism, deal with peer pressure, deal with all of the issues that you would have. They have a number of groups that get together that discuss problems at home. Kids who don't use, but maybe their parents do, or their parents or their siblings do, or they know people and their friend in their peer group that use, and they're uncomfortable with that. So that was a long conversation. It was a great presentation by the school, and I think time will tell as to how well it's working. Based on the administration's reporting, it seems as though incidences are down this year from last. They feel like they've got a good handle on it. They feel like they've got the resources there and available to the students, and they're doing the best they can to deal with it. Then they moved on to public comment. 2 people got up to discuss the same issue, which was the April vacation, based on the storms and the snow days, and snow days already. All these days have been missed because of the storms and the snow. They're considering canceling the April vacation. But also during the April vacation, there are over 100 students who have signed up to go to Disney World. Disney World in Florida? Disneyland. Disney World, I guess, is in Florida, for a Music in Motion. It's the orchestra, the band, and the chorus, and they're going to be participating in an event there. And a lot of the students have already paid down on this particular trip. They've been planning it since last year. It's something that they do every other year for the juniors and the seniors who have paid for this year. If they don't go this year, they'll lose out on that opportunity. They may lose money they put down. A number of these students are in AP and advanced classes, and if they got rid of the April vacation, they'd miss a lot of school. And at that point, they'd be studying for their AP exams. And then the students that are in the, just the normal curricula students would be also missing on a week of school. So the board is going to consider looking at other days within the school year, not taking away the vacation, so that these kids will be able to go and attend that. And those are really the bigger issues. Okay.
Thank you for that report, Tom. Very good. Joe?
Yes, sir. A couple of quick ones. Number one, sometimes you get lucky. Monday afternoon, the 29th, at about 2 o'clock, I left my part-time job and went to the fire station and began dispatching. At 5 o'clock, the stuff really hit the fan in terms of the first storm came through and a whole bunch of trees went down, and we got over 50 calls on that. At 9:45, my wife called and said, don't even bother bringing the car home because you've got two 90-foot pine trees in our driveway. So the car, fortunately, was in the parking lot here, so there was a little bit of luck there. So I called my good neighbors across the street and they let me park over there on Monday night. Thank you, sir. So that was what I want to publicly comment to not only Mr. Sheen, but to the board. We on this board, not myself and Mr. White, but the board members, should be very, very proud of the entire town and the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, which ran like a clock. This was a very tough storm in many, many ways. And the teamwork that Vinnie enunciated was very, very true. We should be very proud of that. And the last thing I'll say is I've always had fun doing Veterans Day and Memorial Day, but I had not had more fun than I did yesterday at the feature on the Veterans thing with the kids because they were wonderful. That's it.
Thank you for doing that, Joe. Okay. So, anything else? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?